Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and I know what you guys want to see next on the APK, and of course, it's not a final build, so things are subject to change. Thank you for the Star Agent program allowing me to do this. So let's just jump right into it. We've got two new characters, as you can see right here. We've got Red Guardian and Yelena, and then we've got 4 new uniforms. All those characters there, Red Guardian, Yelena, Taskmaster, and Black Widow, are getting a uniform, so they sort of compensated for the fact that there are fewer characters by having there be more uniforms to shake up the meta a little bit more, give us a little bit more to build and progress on if you're like an endgame player, and then also, of course, to make more money. So, first of all, how do you get Yelena and Red Guardian? So it's pretty straightforward. We've got one free-to-play character on the right, and we've got one bio subscription on the left. Yelena Belova is going to be available through the bio subscription. So if you don't have... well, I guess you'd have to open a premium hero chest. It's basically impossible. So you're gonna have to get the biometric subscription in order to unlock her, and then you can use, you know, mega rank up tickets and mega tier 2 tickets to get her to tier 2. That is going to make her uniform, the Marvel's Black Widow snowsuit, a little bit more challenging to upgrade. So if you love this character, then you're probably gonna want to save up a mega mythic uniform upgrade ticket for her, because of course it takes more than one full bio subscription to get these characters' uniforms to mythic if you don't have any tickets in between. And that might actually make the smaller tickets from things like Cosmic Core event more attractive. These ones where it's like just one step, you know, rare to heroic, heroic to legendary, so on and so forth. On the other hand, Red Guardian, my boy over here, looks so goofy without his MCU outfit, but he is free to play. So really quickly, I will show you guys. If we have here a combat selector, you get 1 free selector per day, 8 biometrics. You can also get free selectors doing other things. But there you go, you can see that Red Guardian is there and he is selectable. So I'll just go choose him. And there we go. So one's free to play, one costs money, balanced like Thanos says, as all things should be. Now, as far as the uniforms, now that you know how to get these characters, the uniforms I think are nice because they don't seem to be huge power creeps. Now, that doesn't mean that these characters are very, very strong. I don't know that yet, but what I am trying to say is it's not like Red Guardian without his uniform is trash, a la, let's say, Killmonger. And then with his uniform, he's usable. He seems to be very good with both, and although the uniform does provide a bunch of bonus stats and also a uniform effect, there doesn't seem to be a lot of skill changes in terms of the numbers, which I think is good. Now that, because there's less changes, that also means that there's less incentive to buy the uniform for power creep reasons. So again, this is a bit more of a fashion thing. This is a bit more of a collection thing and a bit more of a, you know, MCU thing. I personally really like the bearded look, so I'm going to go for that. But the good thing for Red Guardian, at least, actually, no, the good thing for both characters, they added a little bit more value for these uniforms because both Yelena and Red Guardian, when they don't have their uniforms equipped, so their base looks, they are villains. So you get a really nice villain to hero combination, and that's why it's good that the uniforms aren't a huge power creep, because you don't want a weak supervillain who then gets super strong when she turns to superhero. We don't want that, right? We want some balance between heroes and villains. So that is the case for both Red Guardian and Yelena. So that is really good. Again, you see small changes, like for example, his third skill has 7 seconds of immunity with his uniform, and without his uniform, his third skill has 5 seconds of immunity. You do lose the accumulation, but you still get 5 out of the 7 seconds of immunity, so it's not all bad. It's just a little bit more of a bump from one regard, you know, compared to the other one. And same thing with Yelena. You do lose a few stats here and there, but it's not crazy in terms of, you know, non-uniform has 0 iframes, and the uniform has like 4 or 5 iframes. So there's that. As far as the uniform options, because I know this is the other thing you guys want to know really, really badly. So let's start off with Black Widow. And for Black Widow, it seems that there may be another uniform hidden in the game. I just want to say this because I didn't touch on it in the last video. I didn't mention it. When you pop open the game for the first time, you get a pop-up screen telling you all the stuff that's new, and you will see a model for Black Widow with a white uniform. And it's not her snowsuit, it is her snowsuit. So a lot of players are speculating that this other Black Widow uniform is tied to the Future Pass, and maybe you're going to have to purchase the Future Pass and then do some sort of task to unlock Black Widow's other uniform. Again, another way of monetizing uniforms. We'll have to wait and see. It's not the worst thing in the world, of course, but we have to gauge the value of the Future Pass. I can't say anything without seeing how much you get from the Future Pass. You know, if you're going to be able to get over the course of the month, if you're going to be able to get, you know, 3,000 crystals for $5 or $10, hell yeah, then it's a good deal, right? Like kind of like a Stark stash, a modified Stark stash. But if it's like $20 and you get a uniform and some other crap that you don't want, then obviously it's going into the toilet, and I'm going to make a big stink about it. So let's look at the uniform options for Black Widow first, because she is the star of the show. We've got Hulk Endgame. Of course, you're going to need one Hulk association for Black Widow. Poor Hulk needs reworks, but it is what it is. Then we've got Spider-Man Stealth Suit Far From Home. We've got Captain America Team Suit, so heavy emphasis on Avengers and heroes. We've got Nick Fury, Commander-in-Chief at S.H.I.E.L.D. And then we have Nightcrawler X-Force. So what do I think of these uniform optionals? Well, free-to-play, 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 nice. Paywall, kind of annoying and kind of painful, but this is not the most important stat line. Number 4 is, for non-rage users, number 4 is actually the worst stat to have for an optional. And then we have Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler is annoying, makes you play more Danger Room, definitely. I don't see much of an association in my head from the limited comic reading I have between Black Widow and Nightcrawler, but I could be wrong. They're both stealthy, I guess. Yeah, he's also, of course, very difficult to rank up to get his uniform to Mythic. But at least on the flip side, this does give his uniform more value. He wasn't actually a lot of optional choices for other characters, so that's kind of good for Nightcrawler fans. And then as far as the uniform effect goes, I'm not going to go into the uniform skills, but I will show you the effect, because a lot of people are talking about this and they think it's bad, but I actually don't think it's bad. So they removed her crit rate and crit damage buffs. Okay, you can see here she has a 15% crit rate and 15% crit damage buff. They removed that, and they instead gave her 25% chain hit damage. That's really good for non-rage users again, because that's going to stack with a CTP of energy, giving her 55% crit damage, chain hit damage. Very, very high. That's over 50% chain hit damage is a lot. That's Gambit and Cable territory. So she should be very good with a CTP of energy, which is, again, more free-to-play friendly, more low spender friendly. And then the enhancement to Graceful Dancer and Tactical Advantage is actually substantial. So they added a 25% skill damage and 15% bonus damage on her Tactical Advantage. And then on her Graceful Dancer passive, instead of 5 or 10% physical attack, it's 35%. So they gave her basically a leadership in her passive for physical attack. Not bad. Not bad. And you know what? It's not that hard to cap out your crit rate when you have a skill that buffs your crit rate by 35%. So they didn't really remove her crit rate. They gave her an extra 25% crit rate on a buff. All you have to worry about is her crit damage, which is not that hard to cap out. So don't panic. It's not a nerf. Don't worry, Black Widow fans. I got you. I think this is going to be a really nice uniform for her, but I have yet to test it. I'm just saying it's looking good so far. It's got the Domino look. We just have to see if it plays like, well, we don't want it to play like Domino's uniform. We want it to play a lot better than Domino's uniform. Anyways, moving on to Yelena, the paywall character here. Her uniform effect is pretty strong. She gets 20% increased physical attack, and she gets 15% ignore dodge. And then her optionals are Rogue Uncanny, which is a really good one. Iron Man Team Suit, also really good. White Fox Lifestyles, yeah, okay. Nebula Endgame, good. And then Colossus Phoenix 5. So not as greedy, I would say, as Black Widow's. And a little bit nice to see on a paywall uniform that the optionals are not super greedy. That is a good thing. I think I'm going to be going Supernova very soon because the sun is coming out from behind the clouds. So brace yourselves if you have sensitive eyes. But yeah, so 2 down, 2 to go. Red Guardian is up next. His uniform, of course, transforms him from a villain to a hero, just like Yelena. His option is decreases damages received by 25%. I don't really like it, to be honest. I don't see Red Guardian being PvP worthy, although he does have penetration. The problem with PvP right now is that there is one league for all characters. So tier 2s, especially non-native tier 2s, have a really hard time taking on tier 3 monsters like Jean Grey, Thanos, etc. So, you know, if they would finally rework timeline battle and PvP like we've been asking them to, and if they would delineate and differentiate different leagues, or maybe score your team based on whether you're using native tier 2s, you're using tier 3s or not, and then they would pair you up with a similarly matched opponent, then Red Guardian could be a serious contender for PvP. But yeah, alas, I wouldn't read too much into the 25% damage reduction. Also, keep in mind that damage reduction is not as good as specific hero or villain damage reduction. A lot of players make this sort of false correlation. This is not going to stack with Colossus's 50% reduction to hero damage and villain damage. They sort of calculate separately in separate parts of the formula for damage. And so it's actually much, much worse. So, for example, you know, Blue Marvel has 70% damage reduction. That does not mean he's going to take 0 damage with Colossus's passive. Nope, he still takes tons of damage. The 70% is kind of meaningless. I feel like I feel like the damage reduction gets cut in half by ignored defense. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, anyways. The optionals here, we've got Hulkbuster Infinity War, great uniform. We've got Invisible Woman Future Foundation, kind of bad, to be honest. It was a pretty weak upgrade for her. We've got Sabretooth, really good. Sabretooth is amazing, but think about how short of a time span. Sabretooth was released in November or late October, so less than 6 months later, you're already, or about 6 months later, you're already seeing it pop up as an optional. Captain Marvel from Marvel's Captain Marvel. This is good. Again, uniforms that don't have as many optionals and were kind of overshadowed by their Synergy uniform, aka Endgame. It's nice that this one is still getting some value. And then Luna Snow Andromeda. So, until this point, every single uniform that I've touched on has had one paywall. Colossus is kind of a soft paywall, but you get what I'm saying, right? They need that money, guys. They got their hands wrapped tightly around those udders. And then last but not least, we've got Taskmaster. Now, Taskmaster stays a villain, of course, with his uniform. His uniform effect gives him a whopping 40% increased damage dealt to superheroes and 40% increased damage dealt to villain characters, and it applies to all allies. So move over, Hela. You have been replaced. Taskmaster is now the #2 best. He is the second best offensive tier 2 support character behind Mystique, only because Mystique gives you the 5% extra. And I would guess with an awakening skill, Mystique is stronger than Taskmaster. We'll have to wait and see, but damn, they did do Taskmaster real well. And you know what? Taskmaster is actually the #1 support for specific characters like Wolverine, because it's going to stack with Flawless Strategy, which will apply. So if you find characters like Winter Soldier, Wolverine, where all of these stats apply, and you can apply this one as well, you are getting a whopping number of support buffs. So he just turned into a support buff machine, which I think honestly kind of goes against it. It sort of makes sense with the character and doesn't make sense. On the one hand, Taskmaster works alone, so the fact that he's supporting people and he's buffing other people doesn't really make sense. Now, it does make sense that he buffs weapon master characters because he is a master of many weapons, so that is thematic. And it is also technically thematic that he deals more damage to heroes and villains. Because he's a villain, but he'll go against villains. He'll turn and fight a villain if he needs to, for whatever reason. So he's not your traditional villain. He's not really an anti-hero, but he's very chaotic neutral. Anywho, from what I know, anyways, I hope. Anywho, Tony Masters, hit me up, call me. Let's look at the optionals. We got Ronin from Captain Marvel. I like this one. We've got Black Widow Endgame. I also like this one. We've got Sharon Rogers Darkstar. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this one. I feel like they should phase this one out because it's been long enough. It's been 4 months since they released Sharon Rogers' new uniform, and it's a clear buff over this one. But at the same time, it is nice to give players who invested in both uniforms to give them some value. Then we've got X-23 X-Force, and then we've got Beast Uncanny X-Men. So, you know what? This one's probably the least greedy out of all of them. So you've got X-23 in one, you've got Colossus in another, you've got Nightcrawler and Nick Fury in another one. And then in the last one that for Red Guardian is the one that I can't remember now, you have another paywall. Who is it? And it's usually the last one. It's usually the 5th option. If you guys haven't noticed, usually the 4th or 5th options are paywalls. Luna Snow Andromeda. Oh, and White Fox from the Heroic Quest. So, with that being said, those are the optional uniforms, and those are the uniform bonuses for these characters and how these characters change with these uniforms, whether they're changing from hero to villain, they're adding, or villain to hero, or adding extra support buffs for the whole team, which is crazy. Also, for Taskmaster specifically, I believe that uniform bonus is going to apply whether he's tier 1 or tier 2. Now, I don't know why you wouldn't tier 2 Taskmaster, but that's important to note that, lower spending players and free-to-play players can take advantage of Taskmaster's uniform, even if they haven't got the biometrics yet to get him to tier 2. And then we also covered how to get Yelena and Red Guardian. So let me know what you think. Hit me up with your thoughts down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.